What it do? Hey man, Chicago, you got to do better, man. All my black folks who was born in the '70s, early '80s, man. I need y'all to step up, man. Y'all kids was in them streets acting wild. I was stuck in the middle of that bullshit on Michigan Avenue last night, and let me say this: a lot of y'all, there was some good kids down there, and you could tell they was good kids because they was using the crosswalks. They was waiting for the walk signal. They was doing like stuff. They was raised right. But you letting your kids go down there with these ones who want to go down there and act like animals, and your innocent, good raised kids gonna wind up getting themselves killed. Because look what happened. Shooting broke out. Some people got shot last night. Right on, I believe they said Randolph and Wabash or Randolph in Michigan. That's right where I was. Luckily, I was gone already. I was picking up a college student from the dorms of University of Chicago, taking them to Science and Industry. They had a gala last night. Anybody in Hyde Park will know they was walking around in suits and dresses all last night because they was going to their thing. Um, that shit was ridiculous, man. You got these kids jumping on people's cars that did hard-earned money pay for, pulling them out their cars, fighting them. Telling, I watch girls in front of police just tell the police, we'll shoot this bitch up. The tourists, you gotta feel bad, man. You got people who saved and, they live in the Midwest, ain't never really been nowhere. Work hard, save, it's gonna be a nice weekend. They drive all the way to Chicago to see that, to get attacked. I had people so I had a dude, a black stud in the car next to me. Me and him locked eyes. We was like, it is what it is. We was gonna turn some folks into speed bumps. And then I got to move up a little bit, and there was a car, and they wasn't from here. And the look in this guy's eyes was of straight terror. And I told him, man, as soon as that light goes, if you get a little even break, you hit it, and you keep going, get the fuck out of downtown. That's sad, man. It's sad what's going on. And if y'all parents buy your kids cell phones and pay their motherfucking bills, and you ain't got their location on, and you can't keep trying, you ain't shit. Step up and be a parent, man. That's ridiculous what's going on in our city, man. Imagine like every tourist, now they have that view of black people in Chicago. Imagine what they think your fucking neighborhood looks like if that's what downtown look like. Come on, man.
Chiraq Sean 35th. Chiraq Sean 35th, okay? All right. There's Sean Canning. All right, Sean, I feel you, okay? I feel it was a fucking, well, it's disheartening to see and shit, okay? But I know that a lot of different uh, ethnic groups were mixed in down there. It was just a shit show. And I think before I start addressing that issue, that we should talk about the police officers that were there in mass and stood by and did nothing. Okay, the only thing they did was escort uh, select people out of the area, and they allowed the kids to do property damage and just put on a general nuisance because of the overarching narrative and shit that you guys are trying to push. All right, I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. I take issue with the fact that, well, let's just put it on the table and shit. You're talking to black Chicago and shit, and it looks like you get your identity from black Chicago and shit. That Chirac thing is a slur against our city, our fine city. I'm a son of the city, okay? I'm a son of it, born and raised on the south side, by the way. Public education and shit. Went to Columbia College. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Chirac. I get where you're coming from, man. You're telling black parents to step up, okay? And I'm telling the police department and shit, the public officials down there to step up. Like, what do we need them for? If they can't do their job properly and shit, and take care of this situation and shit, as it were. At least arrest a good portion of them and just like You can just pull threads from their social media and their phones and everything once you arrest them, okay, for disorderly conduct and shit. Okay, but they were just standing by. The whole idea was to make that new black mayor look like a boob and shit. They already laying this at his feet, and he hasn't taken office yet. Chiraq Sean, okay, yeah, I gotta admit, I find some mirth when I was like chuckling when you were talking and shit. Okay, some people call you a wig or a culture vulture and shit. We both know what you are. Okay, you know what about half a year ago? Had another Chiraq Rashawn, another Chiraq Rashawn caping for Miss Sandra's black women and shit. And I called him Vanilla Mac 10 and shit. I gift this to you, okay? Because I didn't go back and check on the other, you know, uh, I didn't go back and check on the other guy, okay? So you can be Vanilla Mac 10, okay? All right? You get your identity from the culture of hip hop and everything. You want to sit up and say that it's trash and whatnot. You want to say that these kids are trash and whatnot. I want to ask you, given the history of our fair city, what did your parents teach you? Okay, like what were you lacking that you have to do this manufactured personality, this unreal? This is not you. Okay, Chirac Sean, are you going to be on your deathbed with your baseball gear on, laying up, listening to some Public Enemy or whatever, or some drill music and shit? Is this who you are? And by the way, when is your record coming out? All right, let's talk about the history of Chicago and shit. The fair Martin Luther King and shit. Martin Luther King and shit. The man gave his life for my people, regardless of what anyone thought of him and shit. He said that Chicago was one of the worst places that he had ever visited and shit when he tried to march through there. And a lot of your people were out there throwing rocks and stones and, had dogs and everything. I've posted videos in the past and YouTube has taken them down because it makes guys like you feel bad. It makes you feel bad to see that archival footage, the history, the truth of it all. And you say, hey, I wasn't out there doing it. That's my dad, my grandpa or something. My great grandpa was out there doing that stuff, but it wasn't me. It's a different world now and shit, right? But when shit hits the fan, you snap to form with your, misinformed rhetoric. It's misinformed. Chiraq Sean, 35. What did you teach? What did they teach you in your household? Like, what did they teach you about black people and shit? Okay, right? I'm pretty sure you've been with some black women and shit. You look like one of those really curious guys that can't get laid with your own women and shit. All right, so you go to, you probably drift over to the west side or something, look for some gutter sex and shit. Not accusing or nothing. But tell me about Bridgeport. Okay, tell me about the history of Bridgeport and why it's a sundown town. Tell me about some of the other areas over there. Some of the other minority majority enclaves where if you look like me, you got to get out of there before 6 or so, or you're just in for the night. You're just working graveyard. Make sure you leave. If you work from 11 p.m. to 7 in the morning, you got to leave around like 8:30, between 8:30 and 9:30 and shit, just to be safe to intermingle in the daylight. Have safe time of getting home and shit. Tell me about that. Have you ever used the public transportation in Chicago? Why don't you try that shit? Why don't you ride from one city end of the city to the other? You'll notice how the environment changes from borough to borough and shit. And we go to a white borough, you see a bunch of white people and shit. And the Negroes that are descendants of pre-civil rights Negroes that settled in Chicago, they always sit in the back of the bus. They drift back there and shit. But partially it's because they don't want to intermingle with you guys, man, because you're so fucking toxic and shit. But you look out the window, you can see things change. You can see, resources and everything in your fucking neighborhoods. Then when you get to our neighborhoods, it looks like somebody dropped a neutron bomb over there and shit. Okay? And it's not just the west side, even the fucking south side. Over decades, they've worked hard to make the south side look like the fucking west side and shit. And I don't care what some other content creators on this platform will have to say about that. Okay, no one's shitting on anyone for where they live except you. All right, you're snapping to form. It's really none of your business. Okay? Do you have any children in the mix or anything? Do you care about anything? Why don't you join the police department? Why don't you go to the police academy and get yourself a proper training, and you take off your black person costume and shit, and you can stop doing the fake accent, the fake New York accent, and just stop it. That's not a Chicago accent you're speaking. That's a manufactured accent. You're fake. Okay, you're a big fake ham bone and shit. You're probably in my fucking age group and shit. Who the fuck knows? Or maybe I'm older than you. I am in my 50s. Right? There ain't shit you could tell me about nothing. I done traveled the city 10 times over or more before I left and shit. And I drifted, I went up to the West Coast for like a couple of decades and shit. And now I'm back here and it's worse than ever. Right? Worse than ever, man. I don't blame your people for that shit. I look to my people first and the two civil rights powerhouses that make their base here. Shit, that nothing has gotten better in all those decades since Martin Luther King was assassinated. Okay? Yeah, I one thing I do blame, the minority majority for is like the redlining, the intense redlining, and the redistricting. Okay, and the like I've mentioned sundown towns. I'm pretty sure you know about that if you're a Chicago person. Okay, and the reverse gentrification that's going on right now. A lot of people are losing their homes and shit. A lot of people are being pushed out of the city proper. Okay, this is the real deal and shit. This is why they want to the conservative news and everything, Fox News, they're so fucking reliable, right? That's why they want to push that narrative and shit. So the reverse gentrification will not be challenged. All right, they'll push all the niggas out of the city into the outlying areas and shit, into these like shanty towns that there used to be suburbs you guys lived in. When you had white flight in the '60s, and you took all the resources with your ass to those areas and shit. That's how you get these nice little areas where John Hughes to shoot his movies like 16 Candles and all that bullshit. You know, happens all over. Rashawn. Is that your real fucking name? Look like a goddamn Chad or something. All right? And definitely somebody that, you know, got to play the role. Right? Got to play the role, man. Okay? I'm offended that you would sit in your fucking car and talk shit to black people. Why don't you talk shit to your people and shit? Why don't you talk to them about that fucked up history they got that you guys keep trying to bury like the dead body. You're trying to bury your own fucking history. And it's still prevalent today. Right? There's still anybody that's listening to the sound of my voice. You can fly your fucking ass down here to Chicago and get on the public bus at one end of the city and just go to the other and tell me if you don't know the shit changed. Go from the white areas to the black area. Go over to the Spanish area shit. You know? Take your ass down there to Chinatown. They used to be adjacent to the projects and shit. They used to have this thing called the Ickies over there. There's these round skyscrapers over there. It used to be full of the dregs of humanity and shit. And then in the fucking late '80s and shit, somebody decided to clean that shit up, and they gave all these motherfuckers Section 8 vouchers and shit, and then they dispersed them into the South Side and the West Side and shit. And you got this criminal behavior that the police refuse to deal with and to do their job and shit. Okay, dudes aren't incredibly smart over here. Criminals aren't incredibly smart. It's some, it's the dregs of humanity. I see some criminal-minded motherfuckers. I can look at a person, I can look at them and see what the fuck's going on and shit. The cops have all this gear. They're duded out and shit. They're over-financed and shit, and they can't solve shit. If you were the mayor, Chiraq, Sean, would you put up with like multiple incidents of over 100 shootings across the city? What would you do about that? I know what I would do about that. I would ask for the job of the chief of police or the top cop, whatever they call it in this goddamn city. It's a fucking shame. It's embarrassing. And the only reason that Chicago gets so much fucking attention is because that carpetbagging Obama, came up out of here and shit. And they were just doing anything to make them look bad in the city bad proxy because the city is a proxy for Obama and the shitty Democratic Party and shit. And the negative when it comes to conservatives and shit, okay, and their bullshit and their agenda they're trying to push, okay. Yeah, you can sit up and talk shit, but you drive home to your nice neighborhood and shit, and you go in your basement and shit, and then maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning you creep out, or probably to the west side and get you a hood rat and shit, and Y'all go to a dirty motel and you have gutter sex with her and shit and feel like you the man, and then you drive back home and shit and you see your white parents and your white grandparents and you sit down and you don't talk like that and you take your fucking hat off and shit. Maybe you might take that hoodie off and shit and you got a flannel shirt under there with a white t-shirt. Maybe take take your Timberlands off and shit and you got some Crocs on, sitting up. Man, you're pathetic. Chiraq Sean, 35, 35th. I like 35th Street. Where about in 35th Street? What part of town is 35th Street? The white part, or definitely ain't the black part, if that even exists. I saw my first drive-by in Chicago on 35th Street, motherfucker. Okay, near 35th and State. Okay, right down the street from the Ida B. Wells homes. Yes, that was a thing. Yeah, I saw a drive-by. I saw it from the 14th floor window. I was fucking my girlfriend. She was bent over, looking out the window, and I was hitting that shit. And then we saw the shit out the window from a high rise. Yeah, it felt good banging that ass, but it did feel good seeing somebody get murdered and shit. Rashawn. All right, maybe you're in those towers now. Maybe you're looking down on the city and watching it change and shit. Making America great again, right? So that you can sit on your fucking high horse with your head up your fucking ass, saying shit that's out of pocket. You're out of pocket, Rashawn. Chiraq Sean, 35. Chiraq Sean. Shy underscore Rack Sean, 35. He's got an opinion. You look like a clown, man. How am I supposed to take you serious? A motherfucker in my age group dressed like a big 10-year-old, dressed like a toddler and shit. Now, I always laughed and shit. I like to, when I was coming up and shit, I wear shit like that because, it's my parents bought me and shit. In my adult life, I walk around with a fucking suit on, or just regular clothes. Collar shirts. Sometimes I wore just regular shit like sweats and stuff. But like I didn't wear it all the fucking time, all this gear and shit. See me walk around though. Fucking, I even suggested that to my father one time that I was thinking about buying like an Adidas suit and shit back in the '80s, and he thought I was the fucking idiot and shit. He didn't say nothing. Just him looking at me conveyed what he thought and shit. My father, who was a prominent member of no prominent member organizations there. Put it that way. Not a criminal. He's a hard-working man. He bought his first fucking house at 30. All right, he bought it from white people that were running away from the black people coming into the neighborhood. The hardworking, you know, nuclear families that were people of color, as you guys like to call it. But I call it black people. The people that had left the South, Mississippi, and all that bullshit. He came from poverty. He worked hard as fuck. Okay? He worked hard as fuck. A lot of those goddamn baby boomers, when the me generation hit and all that crap, they said, fuck everybody. They just into their shit, and I had to watch all this bullshit happen while I was growing up. So much so that I had to get the fuck out and shit for better pastures. I left Chicago. I mentioned that a lot, but I never tell why I left Chicago. It's because there was no opportunities for black people. Well, maybe you call us niggas, right? Yeah, Chicago is the home of niggas walking around with their hands in their back pockets because they ain't got no money and lint in their front pockets. Okay? And they did create a racial divide and shit, It's a content creator on this fucking sector of YouTube, Says his name is Harvey Superboy and shit. And he always takes digs at the South Side. He always takes digs at the fucking South Side. Like, we don't fuck with y'all like that. I never shit on you like that. Okay? When I was a little kid, me and my mom, my family, we went to visit somebody that lived in Cabrini Green when it wasn't messed up yet. I remember that. I'm in my fucking 50s, for Christ's sake. We didn't fuck with that. We didn't create these divides and shit. You guys created your fucking mayors. Your Mayor Daley and his goddamn son. They kept the status quo going and shit. And they fought Harold Washington every step of the way. And when they knew they couldn't overcome him, all of a sudden he passed away on Thanksgiving. As one of your white reporters said, he died from those fatty foods that his people eat. Yeah, I've been trying to find that footage for a minute. And Channel 7 News reporting on Harold Washington's death on Thanksgiving. That was a banner moment. Then you guys knew you had fucked up. You didn't want no riot and shit, so you put Eugene Sawyer as the fucking mayor and shit. And everybody just thought he was a coon, and it wasn't his fucking fault. Years later, I see Lori Lightfoot in that same dilemma after coming in behind Rahm Emanuel or whatever, an Obama pick, you know, who put this fucker down here in our city. He did some of the most shady, disgusting shit you ever saw. And just skipped out, no indictments, no nothing. Closed a shitload of schools, man. Closed a shitload of schools on the Chicago South Side. Over 50 fucking public schools were closed. And they were still funneling funds to the minority majority, to your areas, to your enclaves, funneling that money to already well funded and, backed up schools and shit, schools with grants, all kind of shit. All right. Why couldn't they funnel any of that money to keep those goddamn schools open? And now you want to sit up today in 2023 and fucking complain about black people and shit, black Chicago, when they took away all the fucking opportunities. This ain't no goddamn victim narrative and shit. I'm telling you what's what. Okay, I'm telling you, Rashawn35th. Okay? Why didn't give a fuck about these kids and their education when they closed down 50 fucking schools and forced a lot of them into charters with money they didn't have? A lot of them had to go to shitty, like these charter schools. Some of them are sham charter schools and shit. And they have no fucking control. And you want to complain about the result of that behavior, of that economic redlining, that bullshit, that criminal ass behavior and shit, okay? Okay? Tell me about Laquan McDonald. He got shot damn near 16 times, run down the street, police shot his fucking ass. They didn't know he was mentally, unsound. He got shot 16 motherfucking times. The mayor covered it up. Rahm Emanuel. Got busted and shit. Jason Van Dyke had like a year in jail. He shot the kid in the back. In the back, man. Tell me something, man. Chiraq Sean 35. Do you tell white Chicago? Do you tell them what's what? Do you tell them get this shit together and shit, okay? We ain't coming together, okay? And I think that's a good idea. I say, let it burn, okay? We know why you guys are pushing this fucking
rage.
Oh yeah? Yo, why is that, G?
Of the races, they say we act like rats in a cage. I tried to argue, but check it. Every night in the news, we prove them suckers right, and I got the blues.
America.
Get busy, Humpty.
The red, the white, the blue, and the blue and the red for Crips and Bloods. The white for who's got you doing time. Busting caps on one another.
The underground's down for peace among brothers.
Kill a black man.
What?
Yo, what are you retarded?
Tell them, Humpty.
Yo, do you work for the Klan?
Do what you like.
Unless you like gang banging. Let's see how many brothers leave us hanging.
This message has been paid for by the Dusties. Yes, the niggas you love to hate.